Part 2, Chapter 11 of The Adventures of Jimmie Dale. This is a Librivox recording. All Librivox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. The Adventures of Jimmie Dale by Frank L. Packard. Reading by Lars Rolander. Part 2. The Woman in the Case. Chapter 11. The Magpie. A minute passed, another. The automatic at Jimmie Dale's hip, the muzzle just peeping over the tabletop, held a steady bead on the window. Came the footstep again, and then suddenly a series of low, quick tappings upon the window pane. The Tocsin's hand slipped away from his arm. Jimmie Dale's set face relaxed as he read the underground Morse, and he replaced his revolver slowly in his pocket. "The Magpie," said Jimmie Dale in an undertone. "What's he want?" "I don't know," she answered in a whisper. "He never came here before. There's a back way out, Jimmie, if you—" "No," he said quickly. "We've enemies enough without making one of the Magpie. He knows someone is here with you. Our shadows were on the blind. Don't queer yourself. Let him in. I'll light the lamp." He struck a match as she ran from the room, and, lifting the hot lamp chimney with the edge of his ragged coat, lighted the lamp. He turned the wick down a little, shading and dimming the room, and then, as he flirted a bead of moisture from his forehead, whimsically stretched out his hand to watch it in the lamplight. "That's bad, Jimmie," he muttered gravely to himself, as he noted an almost imperceptible tremor. "Got a start, didn't you? Under a bit of strain, eh? Well," grimly, "never mind. It looks as though the luck had turned Mac off and Spider Jack." His hand reached up to his hat, jerked the brim at a rakish angle over his eyes, and he sprawled himself out on a chair. He heard the Tocsin's voice at the front door, and a man's voice, low and guarded, answer her. Then the door closed, and their steps approached the room. It was rather curious that a visit from the Magpie. What could the Magpie want? What could there be in common between the Magpie and Silver Mag? The Magpie, alias Slimmy Joe, was counted the cleverest safe worker in the United States, bearing only and always one. A smile flickered across the lips of Larry the Bat, one whose preeminence the Magpie, much to his own chagrin, admitted himself, the Gray Seal. He looked up, twisting the stub of a cigarette between his grimy fingers and fumbling for a match, as the Tocsin, and behind her the Magpie, short, slim and wiry, shrewd-faced, with sharp, quick-glancing little black eyes, entered the room. "Hello, Larry," grinned the Magpie. "Got your breath back yet? I felt it through the window pane when yours let go at the lamp." "Hello, Slimmy," returned Jimmie Dale ungraciously, speaking through the corner of his mouth. "Forget it." "Sure," said the Magpie unconcernedly. He stared about him, and finally, drawing a chair up to the table, sat down, motioned the Tocsin to do the same, and leaned forward amiably. "I didn't mean to throw no scare into youse," he said in a conciliating tone, "but I had a little business with Mag, and I was kind of interested in whether she was entertainin' company or not, see? I didn't know youse and Mag was workin' together." "Mabbe," observed Jimmie Dale as ungraciously as before, "mabbe there's some more things youse don't know." "Oh, cough up de grouch," advised the Magpie, with a hint of impatience creeping into his voice. "Youse don't need to be sore all night. I told youse I wasn't tryin' to hand youse one, didn't I?" "Never mind Larry, Slimmy," put in the Tocsin petulantly. "He's down on his luck, dat's all. He ain't had de price of a pinch of coke fer 2 days." "Oh ho!" exclaimed the Magpie, grinning again. "So dat's wot's givin' youse de pip, eh, Larry? Well, den, say, youse can take it from me dat mabbe youse'll be glad I blew around. I was lookin' fer a guy about yer size fer a little job to night, an' I wasn't thinkin' of lettin' young Dutchy in on it. But seem youse are here and in with Mag, and that I got to get Mag in too, youse are on if youse say the word." "What's the lay?" inquired Larry the Bat, unbending a little. The Magpie cocked his eye and stuck his tongue in his cheek. "Good night," he said tersely. "Nothin' like dat. Are youse on or ain't youse?" "Well, den, wot's in it fer me?" persisted Larry the Bat. "More'n de price of a coke sneeze," returned the Magpie pertinently. "Dere's a century note fer youse, an' mabbe 2 or 3 of dem fer Mag." Larry the Bat's eyes gleamed avariciously. "Oh, quit yer kiddin'!" he said gruffly. "A century note fer me!" "Dat's wot I said. Youse heard me," rejoined the Magpie shortly. "Only if it listens good to youse now. I don't want to squeal in after de divvy. I'm takin' de chances. Youse has de soft end of it. 1 century note for youse, and de rest is none of yer business. Dat's puttin' it straight, ain't it? Well, wot do youse say, an' say it quick, 'cause if youse ain't comin' in, youse can beat it out of here so's I can talk to Mag." "Dere ain't nothin' I would take a chance on fer 100 plunks," declared Larry the Bat with sudden fervency, and stared anxiously expectant at the Magpie. "Sure, I'm on, Slimmy. Sure, I am. Cut it loose. Spill de story." "Well, den," said the Magpie, "I wants—" "Youse ain't through yet," interrupted the Tocsin tartly. "I ain't heard youse askin' me nothin'. I ain't done me uppers like Larry, an' mabbe de price don't cut so much ease. See?" "Oh," said the Magpie, with a smirk, "I don't have to ask youse on dis lay. Dis is where youse come in on it fer marbles. Say, dis is where we gets de hook into a guy by de name of Henry LaSalle. Get me?" "Henry LaSalle!" Under the table Jimmie Dale's hand clenched suddenly, but not a muscle of his face moved, save, as with the tip of his tongue, he shifted the butt of the cigarette that was hanging royally from his lower lip to the other corner of his mouth. "Sure, she's got you, Slimmy!" he flung out with a grin as the Tocsin wrinkled up her face menacingly and began to mumble to herself. "He's de guy dat handed her one when she was young, an' she's been layin' fer him ever since. Sure, I know. Ain't I worked him for her till I wears me shoes out tryin' to get somethin' on him? Sure, she's in on it. Go on, Slimmy, wot's de lay? Wot do I do for dat century?" The Magpie hitched his chair closer to the table, and, as his sharp little ferret eyes glanced around the room, motioned the two to bring their heads nearer. "One of me influential broker friends down on Wall Street put me wise," he said, with a wink. "Dat's good enough fer youse two, as far as dat goes. But take it from me, I got it dead straight." He lowered his voice. "Say, he's one of de richest mugs in New York, ain't he? Well, he's been sellin' stocks an' bonds all day, thousands an' thousands of dollars' worth, fer cash." "All dem things is always sold fer cash," remarked Larry the Bat fatuously. "Aw, forget it!" said the Magpie earnestly. "Fer cash, I said. De coin, de long green, understand? He wasn't showin' no checks fer what he sold into de bank except to get dem cashed. Dat's what he's been doin' all day, gettin' de checks cashed, an' gettin' de money in big bills. See? I know of one bunch of 80,000, an' dat's only one." "Wot fer?" inquired Larry the Bat. It was the question that was pounding at his brain as he stared innocently at the Magpie. What did it mean? Why was Henry LaSalle turning, and, if the Magpie was right, feverishly turning every security he could lay his hands on into cash? And then, in a flash, the answer came. They had not found the package! Equally to them as to the Tocsin, sitting there before him, it meant life and death. If the package were found by the Tocsin instead of themselves, the game was up. They were preparing for eventualities. If they were forced to run at a moment's notice, they at least were not going to run empty-handed. Far from empty-handed, it seemed. It would not be difficult for the state executor to realize a vast sum in short order on instantly marketable, gilt-edged securities, say $500,000. Not very bulky either in large bills. $5,100 bills would make $500,000. It was astonishing how small a handbag, say, might hold a fortune. "What fer, Slimmy?" he inquired again, wiggling his cigarette butt on his tongue tip. "What he do that fer?" "How the hell do youse suppose I knows?" demanded the Magpie, politely scornful. "Dat's his business. Dat ain't wot's worryin' me." "No, sure it ain't," admitted Larry the Bat ingratiatingly. "But go on, keep movin', Slimmy. Wot's he done with the stuff?" "Done with it?" echoed the Magpie, with a short laugh. "Wot do youse think? He been luggin' it home to his swell joint up dere on the Avenue and crammin' his safe full of it." Larry the Bat sucked in his breath. "Gee, dat's soft!" he muttered, and then suddenly, as though with painful inspiration: "Say, Slimmy, say, are youse sure youse ain't been handed a steer?" The Magpie grinned wickedly. "I ain't fallin' fer steers," he said shortly. "Dis is on de level." Jimmie Dale lurched up from his chair, and, leaning over the lamp chimney, drew wheezily on his cigarette to get a light. His eyes sought the Tocsin's face. To all intents and purposes she was entirely absorbed in the Magpie. He sat down again to gape with a well-stimulated, dog-like admiration at Slimmy Joe. Was this, too, a plant? Why had the Magpie come to them with this story of Henry LaSalle? And then, the next instant, as the Magpie spoke, his suspicions were allayed. "Let's get down to cases," the Magpie invited crisply. "I didn't blow in here just by luck. Dis Henry LaSalle is de guy youse worked fer once, ain't he, Mag? Dat's de spiel, ain't it? He sent youse up fer pinchin' de tacks out of his carpets?" "I never pinched nothin'!" snarled Silver Mag truculently. "He's a dirty liar! I never did!" Cut it out, can dat?" complained the Magpie patiently. "De point is, youse worked in his house, didn't youse?" "Sure, I did!" snapped the Tocsin, sullenly aggressive. "But " "Well, den dat's wot I want. Dat's wot I come fer. Mag, a plan of de house say?" Jimmie Dale could feel the Tocsin's eyes upon him, questioning, searching, seeking a cue. A plan of the house? Yes or no, and a decision on the instant. "Sure!" said Larry the Bat brightly. "Dat's wot I was t'inkin' youse were after all de time. Say, youse are all right, Slimmy. Youse are de kind to work wid. Go on, Mag, draw the dope fer Slimmy. Dat's better dan tryin' to put one over on de swell guy. Dis'll make him squeal fair." The Magpie produced a pencil and a piece of paper from his pocket, and laid them on the table in front of the Tocsin. "Dere youse are!" he announced. "Help yourself, an' go to it, Mag." The Tocsin, evidently not quite certain of her part, wet the pencil doubtfully on the end of her tongue. "I ain't never drawed plans," she said anxiously. "Mabbe" she glanced at Jimmie Dale "mabbe I dunno how to do it right." "Aw, go ahead!" nodded Larry the Bat. "Youse can do it right, Mag. Youse don't have to make no oil paintin'. All de Magpie wants is de doors an' windows, eh, Slimmy?" "Sure!" agreed the Magpie encouragingly. "Dat's all, Mag. Just mark de rooms out on de first floor an' de basement. Youse can explain wot youse're doin' as youse go along. I'll get youse." The Tocsin cackled maliciously in assent and then, while the Magpie got up from his chair and stood peering over her shoulder, she began to draw laboriously, her brows knitted, the pencil hooked awkwardly between cramped up forefinger and thumb. Larry the Bat slouched forward over the table, his chin in his hands, appeared to watch the proceedings with mild interest, but his eyes, like a hawk's, were following every line on the paper, transferring them to his brain, photographing every detail of the plan in his mind. And as he watched, there seemed something that was near to asthma of all that was ironical with the Magpie standing there, his sharp little black eyes drinking in greedily the Tocsin's work, in the Tocsin herself aiding and abetting in the projected theft of her own money. How far would he let the Magpie go? He did not know. Perhaps, could tell? All the way. Between now and then there lay that package. If it were at Makoff's, at Spider Jack's, if he could find it, get it, the Magpie, as a temporary custodian of the estate's money, would at least preclude its loss by flight if the Crime Club took alarm too quickly. Larry the Bat's eyes, under half-closed lids, rested musingly on the Magpie's face. The Magpie would not get very far away with it. On the other hand, if he failed at Spider Jack's, if, after all, he was wrong, and the package had never been there, or if they had forestalled him, turned the trick upon him, already secured it, then Larry the Bat's lips, working on his cigarette, formed in a twisted smile. Then, well then, that was quite another matter. Perhaps he and the Magpie might not agree so far. $500,000 was perhaps not much out of 11 millions, but it was a salvage not to be despised. Why did he say $500,000? Well, why not? If the Magpie knew of a single transaction of 80,000, and there had been many transactions during the day, $500,000 was little likely to prove an exaggeration, and the less likely in view of the fact that, if those in the Crime Club were preparing for an emergency, they would not stint themselves in the disposal of securities. The Magpie was keeping up a running fire of questions as the Tocsin toiled on with her pencil. Where did the hall lead to? How many windows in the library? Did she remember the kind of fastenings? Did the servants sleep in the basement or above? And finally, twice over, as she finished the clumsy drawing and pushed it toward him, he demanded minute details of the position of the safe. "Oh, dat's all right, Slimmy," Larry the Bat cut in airily. "If youse forget anything when youse get in there, youse can ask me. I got it cinched." The Magpie folded the paper and stowed it carefully away in his pocket. "Ask youse, eh?" he grunted sarcastically. "An' where do youse think youse'll be about dat time?" "In dere wid youse, of course," replied Larry the Bat promptly. "Dat's wot youse said." "Yes, youse will not," announced the Magpie with cold finality. "Do youse think I want to queer myself? A hot one youse'd be on the inside job. Youse'll be outside, wid yer peepers skinned for de bulls, youse an' Mag here too. See? Get dat straight. While I'm on de job youse two plays de game. Now youse listen to me, both of youse. Don't start nothin' unless youse has to. If it's a cinch I got to make a getaway, youse two start a drunk fight. Get me? Youse know de lay. Throw the talk loud an' I'll fade. Dat's all. We'll crack the crib early. It'll be quiet enough up there by 1 o'clock." 1 o'clock! Larry the Bat shook his head. What time was it now? It was about 9 when he had first met the Tocsin, then the Sanctuary, then the long walk as he had followed her, say a 9:45 for that, and he had certainly been here with her not less than an hour and a half. It must be after 11 then. 1 o'clock! And before that must come Makoff and Spider Jack. The night that half an hour ago had seemed so sterile was crowding a program of events upon him now too fast. "Nothin' doin'," he said thoughtfully. "Youse are in wrong dere, Slimmy. 1 o'clock don't go. Say, take it from me, I watched dat guy too many nights for Mag. Tain't often he leaves de club before 1 o'clock, and he ain't never in bed before 2. "All right," agreed the Magpie after a moment's reflection. "Youse ought to know. Make it 3 o'clock." He pulled a cigar from his pocket, lighted it, and, leaning back in his chair, stuck his feet up on the table. "If youse don't mind, Mag, I'll stick around a while," he decided calmly. "Mabbe de less I'm seen tonight the better, and I guess dere won't be nobody lookin' for me here." Larry the Bat coughed suddenly, and rose up a little heavily from his chair. He had not counted on that. If the Magpie was settling down for a prolonged stay, it devolved upon him, Jimmie Dale, to get away, and at once, and without exciting the Magpie's suspicions. He coughed again, looked nervously from the Tocsin to the Magpie, stammered, swallowed hard, and coughed once more. "Well, wot's bitten youse?" inquired the Magpie ironically. "Nothin'," said Larry the Bat, and hesitated. "Nothin', only " He hesitated again, and then the words in a rush. "Say, Slimmy, couldn't youse come across with a piece of dat century now?" "Wot fer?" demanded the Magpie a little aggressively. Larry the Bat cleared his throat with a desperate effort. "Youse knows," he admitted sheepishly. "Just scream me de price of one, Slimmy, just one." "Cook!" exploded the Magpie. "And get soaked to de eyes! Not by a damned sight! No, honest to God, no, Slimmy, just one!" pleaded Larry the Bat. "Nix!" said the Magpie shortly. Larry the Bat thrust out a hand before the Magpie's eyes that shook tremulously. "I've got to have it!" he declared with sudden fierceness. "I got to! See? Look at me! I ain't going to be no good to night if I don't. I tell youse, I got to! I ain't going to row youse down, Slimmy, honest, I ain't! Just one, and it'll set me up if I don't get none. I'll be on de rocks before morning. Dat's straight, Slimmy. Ask Mag, she knows." "Aw, let him go get it!" broke in the Tocsin wearily. "Dat's de best thing youse can do, Slimmy. Dear all like when dey gets in his class." "Youse cocaine sniffers gives me dead pip!" snorted the Magpie in disgust. He dug down into his pocket, produced a bill, and flung it across the table to Larry the Bat. "Well, dere youse are! But youse can take it from me, Larry, dat if youse get whiffed," he swore threateningly, "I'll crack every bone in yer face. Get me?" "Slimmy," said Larry the Bat fervently, grabbing at the bill with a hungry hand, "youse can count on me. I'll be up dere on the job before youse are. 3 o'clock, eh? Well, so long, Slimmy." He slouched eagerly to the door. "So long, Mag." He paused on the threshold for a single, quick flung, significant glance. "See youse on de Avenue, Mag. I'll be up dere before youse are. So long." "Oh, so long!" said the Tocsin contemptuously. And an instant later Jimmie Dale closed the outer door behind him. End of Part 2, Chapter 11. The Magpie. From The Adventures of Jimmie Dale by Frank L. Packard. Read by Lars Rolander.